Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to begin a new week. Good morning. We're beginning a new week with new powers and new hopes and new promises and new enthusiasm to bring Mashiach. Let's first of all give charity. Charity, here it is, coins, charity. Let's give the charity in the charity box. And then we'll give this afterwards to the poor people. Now, let us say a praise to the creator of the universe. Hodu laHashem ki tov ki la'olam chazdo. Praise to God, he is good. Ki la'olam chazdo, his goodness is eternal, and his goodness is also to the world, la'olam. And now let us begin. We're learning about the most important event that ever occurred in the history of mankind, and which, strangely enough, is either ignored or eliminated from or skipped over, and that is the giving of the Torah. Never has there been in the history of the world anything even vaguely similar to it, incomparable. What happened when the Torah was given? The creator of the universe, which many people will say there is no such thing, but the creator of the universe actually told the world why they are here. The creator of the universe revealed himself. What that means, we have absolutely no idea, but it happened. And this is after there were preparatory miracles, which are the Jewish people survived in Egypt for 210 years. That's a pretty big miracle. And then even a bigger miracle, there were the 10 plagues and the Jewish people got out of Egypt. And then even a bigger miracle, the sea split and all the people got a glimpse of who the God is that took them out of Egypt. And then at Mount Sinai, everybody got not just a glimpse of it, but God actually told him why he did all this, why he chose the Jews, why he took them out of Egypt, why he's creating the world, what man is here for, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad, what's the purpose of life, the purpose of life. And the purpose of life, we're going to find out, is something eternal, something we can't really truly grasp, but we can have a good feeling of it. Good feeling of it. A little bit is hinted at, like people have conscience, where you do things you don't think about the results, you just think about what's right or wrong. That's generally speaking why people are here, to do what is right and to avoid what is wrong, regardless of the consequences. But what is right and what is wrong? That's what the Torah was given, and also was given the power to do so. Okay. So it says on the third month. Now, when was the Torah given, by the way? It was given, was it 2,448 years after the world was created. The world is being created constantly. But when did this whole process, when did time begin? Time began 2,448 years before the Torah was given. 50 days after they got out of Egypt, they received the Torah. Pretty fantastic story. But the Jews have actually believed this for the last, and they passed it down from generation to generation, and they stubbornly believe it. They haven't given their lives for it, they're doing the commandments, etc. The same story even passed down. So here we go. That doesn't make it true. That doesn't make it true, but it indicates that it could really be true. What makes it true? When Jews are willing to sacrifice their lives for it now. Oh, that's a little bit different story. That's really, and not when Jews do, but when me and you are. I am. Human person makes his own decisions. Okay, ready? Now, again, you have to remember that in the Bible, the Jewish Bible, 5 books of Moses, is not mentioned going to heaven. Is not mentioned going to heaven. It's not mentioned going to hell. Not mentioned. This whole idea of reward and punishment is like not, how do you say, not the best way to live your life according to Judaism. think about going to heaven, for sure not the idea that everybody is bad. According to Judaism, everybody is good. That's why God gave us the Torah. That's why God is creating us. You are essentially good. The Torah is given not to you to know what you're good for. What you're good for. Okay, let's go. Excuse me. There we go. B'chodesh HaShlishi, on the third month, L'tzeit Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Yisrael, the third month from the Jewish people leaving Egypt, and they left Egypt in the middle of the first month. That was Nisan, is the first month. In Judaism, it's the first month. And then they traveled in the desert. That's in the middle of Nisan. So they traveled in the desert for the last 15 days of Nisan. Last 15 days of Nisan. And then the whole month of Iyar, that's another 30. And then the first 6 days of the third month. So it's called the third month. Even though it wasn't 3 months, they were out. I mean, if you count it all up, it was a little bit less than 2 months. Altogether, 50 days. 50 days after they left Egypt, but it was in the third month. The calendar went into the third month. Okay, so on that very day, they came into this place called Midbar Sinai, the desert, the Sinai desert. Let's make this pointer bigger. Here we go. Ne'emar, it is said, Stam Bayom, it says on that day, and it doesn't say which day it is. Rak Chazal, the rabbis say, Shehu Barosh Chodesh. This is the beginning of the month of Sivan. 6 days later, they received the Torah. Let's make this bigger over here. 1 second. Make this bigger. So it'll be friendly to my eyeballs. Here we go. Ready? Let's go. Yes, there we go. How do we know? Because it says over here, Bayom Hazeh, and it says also another place, Chodesh Hazeh, the word Hazeh, Chodesh Hazeh, Rosh Chodeshim. So we learn that this is the first day. We have to understand, Lama Rosh Chodesh, why doesn't it just say clearly which day they went in? A lot of times it says the date that things happen. It says which, right? The date where things happen. Rosh Chodesh, why does it say Bayom? Why doesn't it just say the date? Why does it say Bayom Hazeh on this day? On this day. Now, also you have to understand when it says on this day, that sort of gives you a little bit of a hint of what's being talked about. This day means today. The Torah is being given today. Not only was it given 3,300, whatever it is, 30 something years ago, but it was also given today. Okay, Yuvan will understand. B'haktim, it's first of all, what is the idea of receiving the Torah? Why did God have to do this, give them the Torah? Now, there's a lot of religions in the world, and as far as I know, all of them have their Bibles or their main books. As far as I know, I don't think there's a religion that doesn't have some sort of a book, huh? that makes it unique from all the other religions. And every religion thinks it's the best, huh? Usually, thinks that it's the best. And they have their books. How do they get their books? One person comes up one day and says, I had a vision, I had a feeling, I had a spirit, right? Or after this person dies, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, his pupils say, you want to know what this great man said? Here it is. And that book becomes suddenly holy, right? But in Judaism, we say that about 3 million people, 600,000 males above the age of 20, that was counted, 600,000, and the rest was not counted. But there must have been about the equal number of women, and there was all the children. They didn't count the children, male and female children. So it comes out. Let's say there was about 3 million people there. Let's say something like that, huh? 3 million people too. So there was about 3 million people, and they all saw and they received directly the Torah. Not just one holy man. Everybody became holy. 3 million Jews. And they passed this amazing, weird story down for the last 3,300 years. Good. So what does it mean? Everybody saw. Everyone saw, everyone received, everybody knew that was the Torah. But let's understand why. Why did God have to do this whole weird thing of giving this these laws on Mount Sinai? It would have been enough that our religion could be like the other religions. I say the Havdil, the separate. Moses himself would go up on a mountain and he would come down and he would say, you know what I got? I just got the Torah. Why did everybody have to hear directly from God? And why did Moses have to bring down 2 tablets directly from God? Why? It would have been just good enough that he would have come and said, here, I have the Bible. Right? I have the Bible. All the other religions do it. And they're successful. Judaism is not really, I mean, Judaism is as successful as far as how long it's lasted. But what percentage of the Jewish people actually follow it is not that very impressive. I mean, to add on another thing is that how many Jews are there altogether, right? These other religions have like 2.5 billion people worship, and 1.5 billion, 2 billion, whatever, right? They have billions of people believe in this, and the other religions, billions, huh? And at least hundreds of millions. The ones that aren't so successful, they have like, 500 million. And Judaism has 20 million Jews that are in the whole world, and let's say 1/4 of them are really religious, something like that. They do all the commandments. I think that almost all the Jews do something. I think that a very big percentage of the Jews, very big percentage of the Jews, do have some connection to the commandments. They eat kosher. A lot of them put on tefillin, especially in Israel. Now the percentage is growing. How do you say? Disproportionate to the how do you say, the graph of growth of religious Jews now it's really raised in the last year since this October 7th thing. A lot of people are starting to realize what really is a Jew. Is really Torah so bad? Is it, they don't do it. So people are starting to do more and more. I've seen a lot of people. There's a lot of people now in Israel, especially the soldiers, that they wear tzitzis and they don't wear a kippah. They wear tzitzis and they do other commandments. Tzitzis are these garments, with the strings. I've seen tens of them like that. Okay, let's understand. So why did God have to give the Torah in such a way? In fact, before the Torah, Judaism was pretty much like all the other religions are now today. Why? Because before giving of the Torah, there were big tzaddikim, there were holy people, and there was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. They were vessels for God, and they knew what to do in order to bring God's blessing into the world. Why did God have to repeat what they already knew for the masses? It would have been just good enough. Like everybody else, you have these big holy people, and they know what's right, and everybody else just sort of follows along. But not only that, even more, in the Torah, there's a lot of really very strange laws that have absolutely no connection to religion, to God, to anything. Right? Don't eat milk and meat. It's a commandment in the Torah. You're not allowed to eat milk. How does that in any way improve a person's personality or show that he's religious or demonstrate anything to anybody? If it's in your house, right? Such a big deal. The guy eats a cheeseburger, he's done a sin. He cooks a cheeseburger. What type of a sin is that? What type of religious act is that, right? Okay, anyway, so we'll see there's a lot of very strange laws in the Torah. These laws are only for the Jews, by the way. The Torah is only for the Jews. All these laws, don't eat blood and things like that. That's only for the Jews. There are 7 Noahide commandments, which are relevant to the non-Jews. And from then also stems out like 30 positive commandments but very few. Okay, so why did God, that's the question. Why did there have to be this whole thing of giving the Torah? And as I started this class off, it's the most important event in the history of the world. But Ha'in is like this. Malat Avram, Abraham knew the Torah, but Avram, he did it on his own. He went from level to level until he went what's called the Negba. This is love. Abraham, little by little, he sifted out what is true. What should I really put my attention to in this world? And little by little, he started understanding that this world must be created. And he started understanding it must be created for a purpose. And he started understanding that the purpose of creation is not that I should go to heaven. That's not the reason why. There must be some way to connect to the Creator. The Creator, he knows what's right. And Abraham, by means of this, he got to love God. The Kolkach, and so much Abraham went from level to level that he eliminated little by little the things that are false until he was in the level, he became a vessel for God, for God's love in the world. He demonstrated in every step that he took, every breath that he made, how much God loves us, that God is creating us. And this is true for all humanity. God is not just creating Abraham or the Jews or the religious Jews. God is creating every human being. God is creating the animals also, but they automatically appreciate God. They're natural, right? They're not appreciating God. They're just living the way, whatever an animal does is okay. They have no right and wrong by animals, right? The lions don't take another lion to the tribunal because he didn't share his his antelope with other lions or something like that. So Abraham, he brought the feeling of love, the reason why God created the world, how good God is. He brought it into the physical world. Okay, that's what Abraham did. What about us? Let's get this thing over here. Oh, it's covered. And this, what did he do? Abraham went from below to above. Now we still have to do the work of Abraham. We still have to purify ourselves in order to appreciate what the Torah is. But after God gave the Torah, there's a big change in the world. Like it says, that Abraham himself went from Egypt. He went himself, he left all of his limitations from, he didn't identify so much with his body or even with his natural soul, which limit a person and make a person selfish. He left his selfishness. He didn't think about going to heaven. He didn't think about any benefits that he was going to get, he was going to receive. He only thought about what is the truth. Until that, even though that his godly soul and his natural soul understood the greatness of God, he started on his godly soul and his natural soul started to understand the greatness of God. Like it says, and that's what we're supposed to do also. That's what we're supposed to do. So why did God give the Torah? We'll see. So Abraham also succeeded in realizing that there's a God, and that God creates the heavens and the earth. At the Shemayim, at the Oretz, Ani Malay, that God fills the heavens and the earth. But nevertheless, Abraham was still limited. He could not go out. Abraham was not able to totally leave his own egotism, namely his body, to be eskafi v'sabcha. Abraham, his body was a separate unit from his soul. He couldn't really use his body to serve God. Abraham. Like we even say nowadays, that a ganva apum machtarta, it says nowadays that a thief can believe in God and his soul is connected to God and he becomes a big rabbi, but he still remains a thief. Why? Because he likes to steal and he needs the money, or so he thinks himself, and he even prays before he goes to steal. How could there be this, how do you say, the paradox in a person? Because there's Abraham, the religious person, and Abraham, the person. The great thing of Abraham, our father, the first Abraham, right, was Allah bechinas meitzar, that he went and his soul actually was clinging to the essence of God. His body was not dominant at all. And this type of love is because you think about what God is. And we have to do this also. We have to do what Abraham did. That's why Abraham is called the father of Judaism, because he introduced this idea of appreciating God, Abraham. And he spread it out to the whole world, that the whole world could appreciate God himself. There's a very essence part of Judaism, that God is not just up in heaven. God creates us. God is involved with us. If you think that there's some person in the middle, the Son of God, the Ghost of God, the Spirit of God, there's something like that, that's already coming close to idolatry, if not idolatry itself. because God himself personally takes care of us personally, without any in-betweens. God personally. In order to appreciate what that means, and you don't start taking it too literally, that's why you have to big tzaddikim and holy people and things like that to understand how to manifest this closeness of God, what it implies. So God himself, God's it says Malchutcha Malchut Kolamim. God is actually creating the world. So you're sitting there, you're listening to this class. Do you feel that God is creating you? Well, you should. You should feel that God is creating you. What does it mean? You should. It means that God created you in such a way that you don't feel it. And he also created it in such a way that you would like to feel it, but it's just too hard. So therefore, God has to give you power to, yes, try to feel that God is creating me, and God is creating me for a reason. Try to feel it. You have Abraham. Abraham broke the ice. Abraham was born like about 2,000 years after the world was created. So before Abraham, there was also big holy people. There was Chanoch and Tushelach. We learned about that before. But nothing like Abraham. Abraham brought God into the world, to everybody. Everyone could appreciate God. Like Abraham said, Baruch she'amar v'haya olam. Blessed is the one who spoke and created the world. God created the world from his speech. So don't think you can understand from the world what God is, but you can get a little bit of a hint. Again, I know we've said this over and over again, but it's the main theme of Chassidut and main thing of Judaism, that this physical world, mundane world, and the people in it are very, very, very important to God. Every detail of this world is very important to God himself. And every minute of this world and every person's life is very important to God. Very important. And what we do has a big effect on God. God gets pleasure from what we do. The opposite also. That's the whole story of the Bible. The whole story of the Torah is the interaction between God and the Jewish people and God, and the world and God. God made the flood. These people were Jewish. But nevertheless, the world is still created from just a little bit of a ray. So the world is real, but it's a very, 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 very dimmed down type of reality. As important as it is to God, because we see what big efforts, so to speak, that God made in order to dim himself down and to dim his light down and to make this world, this low, terrible world with all these bad things in it. God made a big effort that it should be this way. And he's keeping it this way. And our job is that God should be blessed on the heavens and the earth, that we should do good, and that will evoke God's blessing in this world. Okay, 1 second. So I want to skip a little bit over here. We shouldn't do it, but I'm doing it. Okay, that's what it says. Like it's written, Ani Hashem lo sheniti, I am God, I never changed. In other words, God's reality is so real that it can never change. It's like, let's say, maybe this is a very poor example, but I'm giving you the example anyway. Let's say you want to understand how rich the king is. There's a king. Let's say the person is the king of America, king of America, right? How much money has the king of America got? Well, if you take away $1 trillion, it doesn't take away anything from his riches. He says, well, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. He says, okay, I made a mistake. He's not the king of America. He's the king of the whole entire world. The entire world. So that, now it makes a little more sense. If you take away $1 trillion, it does not take anything away from his riches. He says, but 1 second, that also doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's a certain amount of money and riches that there are in the world. What about what's hidden in the ground? The diamonds and the riches? It's still limited. Okay, so I made a mistake. This is the king of the whole entire universe. You know how much money there is? If you take away $1 trillion, it doesn't remove from his riches. He says, okay, that maybe makes a little bit of sense, right? But really it doesn't. I saw one place that there's scientists that make an estimation how many atoms there are in the world. So I don't think there's as many jewels in the world as there are atoms, right? So how many atoms? So if so, there is a certain limit to how much wealth there can be in the world. So to say, okay, but God is not like that. God creates the whole world. And because God creates the world, so no matter what you remove, anything you remove from this world, or even from the spiritual worlds, from God, it does not change God at all. If you remove one atom from the universe, there's one atom less in the universe. But God is not part of the universe. God creates the whole universe from nothing. So everything is really made from nothing. So if you take anything away from, right, God creating the earth, the world, the whole universe with the spiritual, he made it from nothing. So it doesn't detract from him. I am God enough. We cannot understand this. But when we understand that God really is real and he cares about us and he's creating us, so therefore, when you start to realize what this is, tishpoch hanefesh el chikavia, you will pour out your soul to the bosom of God, really. To be desires my soul with a tremendous, how do you say, surrender to God. I just went to somebody. I visited a person in Chabad, and the man he's ill. Amazing person, a really amazing person. They had to cut off one of his legs. He had, I think, diabetes, and he also lost all of the hairs of his this because he had another disease and he had this. Anyway, so he still goes around and he's in a wheelchair. He's got this guy that pushes him around, a really nice Indian fellow. I'm sort of friendly with him. We talk. And he pushes him around the Kfar Chabad, and they enjoy each other's presence. But he didn't come to synagogue on Shabbat because he didn't feel good. So I went and visited him once Shabbat. So he told me that when he doesn't feel good, what does he do? He closes the door and he talks to God. And he says, God, listen, I really love you so much. I love you so much. You're just so wonderful. And I would like to ask you if you could make me a little more healthy. But if you don't, I accept it because you know what's better for me. He said, if I could, God, I would hug you. I love you so much. So he spoke in such a friendly, sort of natural way, a non-religious way, oh God. And he thanked me for listening to him, which, by the way, I'm giving advice to anybody. If you know anybody that's ill, and if you know that person at all, even the slightest, and you go and visit that person, and you just listen to what the person has to say. Just listen for a minute, give him a blessing, and listen. Sometimes there can be nothing better for a person than somebody listens to him. Just to listen to a person. My theory is psychiatry, right? But Freud and these people, and these guys. And so I learned Freud, and I learned a little bit of Adler, and I learned a little bit of these guys, Jung, and these people. I learned them. And all of them, after I finished reading them, I got the idea that these people were just wonderful. They were totally wrong. What they said, almost totally wrong about what a human being is. But at least it gave them chances to do these mental tricks and not get bored. They could listen to people. So a sick person would come to, and they'd finally somebody to talk to. Right? And the person really cared about that person. They didn't care about the person at all, but at least they were trying to cure him, right? Maybe they did care, right? So they listen. This is the Oedipus complex. No, this is the inferiority complex at work, and this is the. And they're sitting and figuring out. And the guy says, "Oh," and he's explaining, so you can talk. Finally, you can talk to somebody. And so sometimes it's just even a person that's healthy. Just listen to people is sometimes a big help to people because people don't listen to each other. People don't care. So you'll be the first one that cares. Abraham was a person that cared. He cared and he knew that God listens to us and that we should listen to God. And see, but nevertheless, he realized that God never changes, that God is infinitely real and God is infinitely good, and nothing can detract from his good and from his infinity. But nevertheless, it's not the same thing as the giving of the Torah. But that was, first of all, that was Abraham. That was Abraham. Okay, so let's see where it goes. So, that's what it says. But a person can become the Siba, that a person becomes weak and he does not love God and he does not have this feeling of connection to God like Abraham, is because we don't have that same power as Abraham did. Abraham was a special person. He showed us what is humanly possible, but we can't reveal our potential. That's what it says. Kosha v'ovani kochi. It says, because of my sins, therefore my power is weak. Al yedei avonos, when a person does things against what God says, so that makes a person weak. It makes a person weak, and the power of his godly soul becomes weakened. So it doesn't have a say in your personal life. That's what it says. Your sins divide between you and God. When it says your sins, it doesn't really mean sins. It just means that your physical body and your, the materialness, egotism, selfishness, naturally selfish. Now, every normal person, if a person is not selfish and doesn't think about himself, there's something wrong with you, right? You want to sleep out on the streets and eat from garbage cans, and you don't care if you're dirty or if you're clean. That's not good, right? You have to be selfish. You have to think about yourself. Of course, you have to think about yourself. And it's a good thing to have a job, and it's a good thing to be rich, and it's a good thing to be married. You have to get married. It's a commandment. And have children. If a person doesn't have children, it says he's like dead. So these are all things that come from egotism. If you don't have egotism, you should get married, whatever. I don't care. I'll get married. I won't get married. I won't have money. I will have money. Right? I'll live in a garage somewhere. I'll find a place that's an abandoned place. I'll live there. That's better, right? Then I don't have to have money. I don't have to this. You don't have to eat every day. So you eat once at 3 days, something like that. You find a little stuff, right? And God helps you. He finds you. If you find a thrown away banana or something like that, and you can eat it, right? That's not good. That's not a normal life. You have to be an egotist, but that has to be what's not the dominant factor in your life. The dominant factor in your life has to be God. When here we're especially talking about Jews, a godly soul. It says, therefore, a person that puts too much emphasis on his body, even if you're a big Talmud Chacham and you're great, but you're still thinking more about yourself, so that's called a sin. It's called a sin in regarding to what we owe God and what we give him, what we pay him back. Therefore, what happens is your egotism, your selfishness becomes a iron curtain, Mesach Barzel. And it limits a person so he cannot really feel the truth. He can't feel the oneness of God. And this brings with it depression and aggression and addictions and what is it? The lust and anger and terrible things, diseases. Therefore, you're stuck inside of yourself and you can't get out. Therefore, God gave the Torah so that everyone can be like Abraham. But even more, we'll see. Therefore, God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. That the Torah is called Oz. The Torah is called power. And when a person reads the words of the Torah, he's not reading a book that was given 3,000 years ago. He's reading what God is saying right now. And especially if you say the words, God is speaking through you, the words of the Torah. Because the Torah gives power, the oz, and strength to the godly soul. Now, according to Tanya, Chassidut points out that there's a very essential difference between the Jews and the non-Jews. That a Jew has what's called a godly soul. Non-Jews have a spiritual soul. They have a conscience that tells them what's right and what's wrong. They have a spiritual soul that directs them to what's above them. But Jews have a godly soul. And the godly soul is telling you that God is directing himself to what's below God. That God is empowering you to connect only to the Creator, not to think about yourself, to use your whole self in order to be harmonious with the Creator. That's the godly soul. And that was increased when God gave the Torah. The Torah is God's way of looking at the world, from above to below. Spirit is from below to above. We want to raise up a spiritual soul. But the godly soul is God's way of looking at the world. It's a shot of godliness into the world. And that gives a new impetus, a new, how do you say, inspiration to the whole person. That's the Torah. Okay, now I just want to say one other thing. By the non-Jews and all the non-Jewish religions, they think that God is spiritual. God is spiritual. That's what God is. You see God after you die. This is true. Of course, it's true to a certain, but it's not ultimate truth. God is not limited to being spiritual. Spiritual is a creation of God. That's how the Bible starts off. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The heavens are all the spiritual worlds, and the earth is the physical. Spiritual is just a creation, but it's a creation that God made that you can use as a ladder to elevate yourself, to know that this physical world is not the ultimate reality. It's just like the tip of the iceberg reality, an inverted iceberg. And that the upper worlds are more real. They have more of an appreciation of God than we do. But nevertheless, it still is an appreciation. So the Torah is pure godliness. Now, by the non-Jews, it is incomprehensible to them that God himself would speak to a whole entire nation and tell them, don't light a fire on Saturday. What in the world would God, why would God care about a thing like that, right? God's thing is to get you into heaven or something like that. It's a spiritual, to go from the physical to the spiritual. That's what religion is, right? It says not Judaism. Judaism is the true religion, dat emet. And it's telling us that God cares about this physical world more than the spiritual worlds. And God really cares that Jew should not light a fire on Saturday. And when does Saturday begin? When the sun sets on Friday. 1 minute before that, you can light as many fires as you want to. And 1 light after that, if you do it, it's the worst punishment in Judaism. Under certain weird circumstances, but nevertheless, it's terrible. What would God care about a thing like that? What type of a God cares about a thing like that? It says, but nevertheless, that in fact is God. And if you think that it's not, you're wrong. And that's what it means. You really want to serve God. That's the God that we're serving, the one that creates the heavens and the earth, the heavens as well. That's what it means. God gave power to the Jewish people, to the godly soul, to overcome any sort of selfishness, any sort of materialism, or even spiritualism of the soul, of the body and the soul, the natural soul, the gasutam, and your selfishness to go totally out. That's what it means. God gave Hashem Ozlam Oyitain. God gave power to his people. That's the true meaning of power to the people, is when God gave the Torah. Hashem Yavorech Amo B'Shalom, that God blessed his people with peace. Because by means of the Torah is called power, is therefore it can make B'Shalom, 2 types of peace. What are these 2 types of peace? We'll find out later. But the idea of the Torah is when you know what's right, then that calms everything down. Right? I think maybe nowadays with the internet, it could be that it stopped a lot of arguments. Why? I remember my father used to have he was a pharmacist, my father of blessed memory. He was a pharmacist. And sometimes people would get into arguments, and they would have arguments about the most stupid things, right? Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs. That was in 1935. I don't know when it was, in fact. So what are you talking about, 1935? You don't know what you're talking about. It was 1945. Says, what are you talking about, 1945? And they started getting angry. You're calling me stupid. I'm calling you stupid. So one second. Let's just look in Google and see what it is. You look and see, oh, there's the truth. Right? What year was it? I mean, I don't personally know what year it was, but let's say, oh, look at that. It says 1938. Oh, you're both wrong. Ha, ha, ha. When you see what the truth is, then that makes peace. You see what ultimate truth is, it decides a lot of arguments. Now, if you look in the Torah, very interesting thing. The essence, in a lot of ways, and the essence of Judaism is arguments, because God purposely gave the Torah in a way that it's not clear, and that the rabbis have to discuss. That's the whole Talmud. And you see that the rabbis discuss, and they come with genius arguments about what exactly you're supposed to do and why you do it and what it is, and they bring this sentence and that sentence because God purposely made a lot of the laws of the Torah unclear. So that there should be arguments, and that the argument should be only to discover what is the truth. And when the truth is discovered, it eliminates all hatred and it makes peace. But it tells us that everybody has a right to their own opinion, and it's a good thing that you have a different opinion from others, but you have to be willing to surrender your opinion to the truth. And that's called peace. Peace is when there's two opposites, and those two opposites come together. If there's no opposites, that's not peace. Right? Communism, what did communism want to do? That we should be world peace by means of what? Killing all the opposition. Anyone who didn't agree, kill them. Now there's peace. There's no peace. Human beings are not made to agree with everybody. They're not made to agree. Human beings are made that everybody has their own opinion, and that's good. But now that the Torah is given, so it gives the ultimate what the truth is, and it tells you have a right to your opinion, but in the end, you can prove from the Torah what is your opinion correct or not. And that's called making peace. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. That's what the Torah was given for. Power, namely it says what is right, and to make peace, that everyone can participate in the truth. There's much more to it than that, but we'll talk about what that is tomorrow.